Christophe was once a name everyone in France knew. His songs were like whispers of poetry floating in the air, filled with longing and mystery. In smoky cafes and crowded halls, his voice carried emotions that words alone could not capture. For young lovers, his music became the soundtrack of their first kiss. For dreamers, it became the spark that made them believe in impossible journeys. But Christophe was not just a singer. He was an enigma. When people listened to him, they felt as if he was revealing secrets that had been hiding inside their own hearts. His melodies did not shout, they whispered. They did not demand, they invited. And this quiet power made him different from the loud stars of his era. As the years passed, fame built a golden world around him. His songs climbed charts, his concerts filled theaters, and magazines wanted to capture his mysterious gaze on glossy covers. Yet, behind the shining lights, Christophe was always slipping away. While other artists celebrated under spotlights, he would disappear into the night, vanishing into streets where no one followed. He loved the stage, yes, but he feared the cage of fame. To him, success felt like both a gift and a prison. He once said in an interview, "I live in the night. Daytime belongs to others, but the night belongs to me." And so, when the cameras switched off, Christophe would retreat. He would walk through Paris when most of the city was asleep. The neon lights reflected in his eyes, and the silence of the empty boulevards gave him peace. This is where he began to craft his other life, a life the public did not see. It was a life built not on applause, but on solitude. A secret life, hidden behind closed doors, behind drawn curtains, behind the silence of midnight rooms filled with vinyl records, synthesizers, and cigarettes burning into the dark. People who adored him on stage, I'd not know this Christophe. They only knew the legend, not the man, and that was exactly how he wanted it. He wanted to be a ghost in plain sight, loved by millions, but truly known by almost no one. This was the paradox of Christophe, a man whose voice could make strangers feel close, while he himself remained distant. A man who seemed to give everything through music, yet kept his true self locked away. The glory was dazzling, but the isolation was waiting. And as the years moved forward, that isolation would slowly grow, swallowing him piece by piece. Because Christophe was not just running from fame. He was chasing something deeper, something that even he could not fully explain. The man of the night. Christophe's nights were unlike anyone else's. While the city of Paris was asleep, he lived in a world that belonged only to him. His apartment became a laboratory of sound, filled with cables, keyboards, and endless piles of vinyl records. Cigarette smoke curled into the air like phantom shapes, and the glow of his synthesizers lit the room like tiny stars. To the world outside, he was a famous singer with timeless hits, but to himself, he was more of an explorer. He was always searching, always experimenting, always chasing sounds that seemed just out of reach. He believed music was not just something you performed. It was something you discovered in the silence between heartbeats. Friends who visited him said it felt like entering another dimension. The clocks had no meaning there. Time seemed to dissolve. Christophe could sit for hours, lost in the sound of a single chord, replaying it again and again until it revealed a hidden truth. But with this obsession came distance. The more he devoted himself to music, the more he stepped away from the people around him. He was married once, but even love could not hold him in the daylight. His wife often said that Christophe did not live with her, he lived with his music. Eventually, the marriage collapsed, not because of hate, but because Christophe belonged to another world. He was not cruel, not careless. He was simply unreachable. He lived in what he called the kingdom of the night, and those who loved him could never fully enter it. This was the price of his genius, the invisible wall that separated Christophe the man from Christophe the legend. And yet, he was never lonely in the way most imagine. He had his machines, his records, his collections of art and films. He would sit in the dark watching old black-and-white movies, whispering lines to himself as if speaking with ghosts from another time. He surrounded himself with beauty, but not with people. Journalists who tried to interview him were often frustrated. He spoke in riddles, drifting away from questions, answering with fragments of poetry rather than facts. One reporter once said, "Talking to Christophe is like chasing smoke with your hands. You think you've caught him, but then he disappears." Still, his fans loved him for this mystery. In an age where celebrities revealed everything, Christophe revealed nothing, and that made people want him even more. He was untouchable, unreachable, yet strangely intimate through his songs. But there was a darker side to this life of shadows. The isolation that gave him freedom also built invisible chains. Each passing year pulled him further away from the warmth of ordinary life, family dinners, close friendships, daily routines. Christophe had traded all of it for a kingdom of silence. And slowly, though he did not realize it, the silence was winning. The walls of silence. As the years rolled on, Christophe's secret world became less of a choice and more of a cage. He no longer walked the bustling boulevards of Paris as often as before. The man who once found freedom in the city's empty nights now closed his doors to it. His apartment, with its dim lights and endless collections, became both his sanctuary and his prison. He surrounded himself with objects he loved: rare jukeboxes, old records, vintage film posters, antique machines. To Christophe, these objects were alive. They carried voices of the past, whispers of forgotten eras. He once told a friend, "Things speak to me more than people do." And perhaps that was the truth. Yet silence has a way of creeping into the soul. The very isolation that once gave him inspiration began to weigh on him. Fans still adored him, and his concerts remained magical, but he gave fewer and fewer of them. When he did appear, the crowd would cheer wildly, as if embracing a ghost that had briefly returned to the world of the living. But the moment the lights dimmed and the applause ended, Christophe vanished again. He returned to his shadows, leaving people to wonder where he had gone, what he was doing, what he was hiding. Some believed he was writing endlessly, creating masterpieces locked away in his home. Others imagined he was battling inner demons, haunted by fears he never spoke of. In truth, Christophe gave them no answers. He let the mystery feed itself. Neighbors rarely saw him. He would step outside at strange hours, always alone, always quiet. Some nights he would drive through the city with no destination, letting the neon lights pass across his face like fading dreams. To him, the night was still beautiful, but to outsiders, he looked like a man drifting further from the world of the living. And yet, when he returned to music, it was as if the silence had been worth it. His voice carried the same haunting power, and his melodies were as tender as ever. People could not understand how a man who lived in such distance could create songs that felt so close, so personal, so deeply human. Perhaps that was Christophe's paradox. The more he hid, the more people felt they knew him. His silence was not emptiness, it was depth. His absence was not neglect, it was part of the mystery. Still, behind the beauty, there was pain. Christophe never admitted it openly, but isolation has a cost. It carves away the warmth of touch, the comfort of laughter, the bond of family. It leaves behind an echo, a reminder that even geniuses are human, and even poets of the night cannot escape the hunger for connection. Christophe had chosen silence, but silence in time was beginning to choose him.